Welcome everyone to the All Candidates Forum on Seniors Issues. I'm Wendy Stewart, your moderator today, and I'm going to offer some opening remarks. We recognize and give thanks today for being able to live, learn, work, and play on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Silks people. We also mourn the loss of so many Silks people, children, under tragic circumstances in Kelowna. Thank you to the candidates and audience for joining us for our event, which is sponsored by the Penticton Seniors Action Committee. The Penticton Seniors Drop-In Center, South Okanagan Seniors Wellness Society, and One Sky Community Resources are the Penticton Seniors Action Committee. To explain our event today, for the members of the audience, you will see and hear the entire event. Your Zoom cameras and audio are muted. We know that we have a full house today. Over 80 people are with us, and we thank you all for coming. The audience can submit questions via the Q&A function on your screen. We will gather those and ask the candidates as many as we can. To begin, each candidate will have 3 minutes to tell us about themselves and to answer the question, if elected, which part of the city's age-friendly action plan do you see as a priority and how would you promote it? Prior to the start, we drew names to determine the speaking order. Following the candidates' remarks, we will have questions. We will ask 3 candidates to answer 1 question and then pose another question to 3 other candidates. If a candidate wants to answer a specific question they have not been asked, they can raise their hand in the Zoom function, or they can raise their hand on screen, and they will have 2 opportunities to raise their hand. Candidates have 1 minute to answer all questions. Before we continue, I'd like to mention that James Miller and I have had a professional relationship. I have submitted stories to James in his role as editor of the Herald and as my role as a board member for the Seniors Wellness Society. Janet is our timekeeper today. She will give you a pitch. She'll let you know at the end. We will not mute you, but ask. And with that, Kate Hansen, you are our first speaker. You unmute and welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the Seniors Wellness Society for hosting this afternoon's All Candidate Forum. My name is Kate Hansen, and a war bride, my nana stepped off the SS Sycamoose and onto the Penticton Pier in 1919 in her Edinburgh finery, and the clan has never left. My mother grew up and graduated from Penn High in 1958. I've also grown up here, and I believe it's the best place in Canada to raise my daughter. I spent the last 29 years as a member of the RCMP, working right here in Penticton for the last 5 years. I was surprised to see how many changes in our city have happened since I left, and I understand now there's a perception that Penticton is unsafe. Our community is concerned with public safety, as well as homelessness, addiction, mental health, and an increase in property crime. People want to feel safe. It is hearing these concerns that motivated me to run for city council. I'm a devoted mom, a retired member of the RCMP, a children's book author, a Catholic mom and wife. Now to your question, which part of the city's age-friendly action plan would I see as a priority, and how would I promote that if elected? My priority would be to work on the physical environment portion of the plan. That is to say, outdoor environments, transport and mobility, and housing. I speak with many seniors when I'm out walking in our parks and enjoying our city, and I consistently hear the same thing. Seniors want to feel safe in their homes and when they go out. Outdoor environment. I see the need for more rest areas, benches, seating, shade, and shelter, access to more bathrooms, and also the need for even walkways and well-marked pedestrian routes. The routine presence of bikes on our sidewalk is one of the biggest frustrations that seniors have expressed to me. Seniors often cannot hear them coming, nor have the agility or ability to get out of the way. There is a simple fix. It is against the city bylaw and the Motor Vehicle Act to ride a bicycle on the sidewalk. With education and enforcement, the matter could be easily remedied. Public transportation is often challenging for seniors. With the development of regularly scheduled pickup and drop-off zones near a senior's home on certain days of the week, this would help remove the anxiety of catching the correct bus and getting home from the bus stop. Housing. In today's real estate market, Penticton is no longer affordable. The cost of living is increasing and many seniors on fixed budgets are finding it hard to make ends meet. We need more affordable housing and accessible housing. 5, seniors need a place to socialize and share experiences. They too want to get out and enjoy the beautiful region in which we live. Our senior population is growing and we need to support this demographic. I will work hard to ensure that Penticton remains a safe, modern city, yet keeps its small town charm. I believe that everyone deserves to feel secure, supported, and included. The vote of seniors will decide this election. Please make sure that your voices are heard.
Thank you, Kate. Keith McIntyre.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Really glad to be here. Yeah, Keith McIntyre. I've lived in Penticton now for 10.5 years. I moved here when my kids were small in kindergarten and grade 2 from Calgary. It was a fabulous choice. I've been an active volunteer in the community. You might remember me from a few different initiatives. Most recently, but I was previously the president of the Okanagan School of the Arts, and I was trying to save the Shatford Center for the community, which I'm very disappointed that the school board chose to close it, because as we're reopening in the coming months, that building would have been a very, very valuable community asset, especially for seniors. Just a beautiful building. I miss it. I used to go there every day. I also ran for MLA in the last election under the Libertarian Party, and I was the only candidate that was really truly advocating for seniors' rights and for seniors to be part of the conversation in the COVID response, because I know how very difficult this has been on seniors. I have an 87-year-old grandma that my parents rescued from her care home, and they've been taking care of her, and she's thriving. I have no doubt that she would not be alive if she had been in their senior center isolated for over a year. And on that subject, a lot of you have been on this planet 7, 8, 9 decades, and you haven't been allowed to be part of the conversation. One of my favorite conversations at that time was at Cherry Park Residence. It was the only in-person forum that actually happened. I stood out on the patio, and it was just a really, really valuable valuable experience, and I learned a lot from the report that we were given to look at. Like, to me, it looks like a fairly long and obtuse, mostly city study with not a lot of action. I think we as a community need to get together and start acting. And the municipal government doesn't need to be the one that's driving the conversation. We as citizens can drive that conversation. The number one thing out of that study, though, I think that is a problem in Penticton is transportation. And I led a large community event a few years ago, and I came across a company called Via, and they had on-demand transit. So we rely on BC Transit. We lose, I think we spend about $1.2 million on BC Transit, and we lose $600,000 a year for very poor service. This was an Uber style transit service that would have given a whole lot more service for the city, and especially the seniors. I think if you look back to when you all were young, there was an accountability. Government was very small. And I think we can get back to that place where the community takes care of us, and the municipality doesn't have to do it all for us.
Thank you, Keith. Katie O'Cal, if you want to unmute, and off you go. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Katie O'Cal. I am a virologist by training and a winemaker by trade, but most importantly, I am a proud resident of Penticton. I have a vision for Penticton that includes an affordable, maintainable lifestyle for everyone. I realize that different age groups and demographics have different needs and requirements from our city. I think that seniors have an incredibly valuable role in our city, and I would love to embrace that further. My mom might kill me for saying this, but she's also a senior resident of Penticton. Through her and her social circle, I've seen firsthand the incredible contribution that seniors make to our community, not just economically, but socially and culturally as well. But I've also learned through them about their struggles with doctors, housing, and accessibility. A large part of my campaign platform rests on improving our policing. I don't want seniors to feel bullied or like their town is being taken over. I don't want you to feel unsafe to walk downtown like you've walked for decades. When we can safely bring back Elvis Fest and Jazz Fest and Peach Fest, I want everyone to feel safe and comfortable in a town that is celebrating and not worrying about locking their vehicles or running into unsafe situations. I would like to see proven, creative, and innovative strategies to reduce crime. These include restorative justice where appropriate, community involvement with at-risk groups with activities like cleanup days, and empowering the justice system to make convictions stick. No more revolving door, please. I would also like to see a larger effort to attracting affordable housing for young families, our seniors, and the working poor. For seniors, living month to month on meager pensions is scary. Every month, the cost of living goes up, but your pension fails to increase at the same rate. I've seen this time and time again doing taxes, as I've done in Penticton for 6 years now. You have worked hard your entire lives, and you deserve to enjoy your retirement without fears that your cost of living is going to skyrocket. If elected, I will work tirelessly to bring affordable housing to Penticton. Involving the senior community in more creative intergenerational ways is a phenomenal opportunity to have you share your skills and your wealth of experience with younger generations. The Seniors Pen Pal program organized by the library this year was brilliant in my opinion, and one that I feel the city should endorse in a larger scale. Another opportunity that has been successful in other regions of the world is incorporating children's daycare with senior centers. The power of play is something that everyone can benefit from. Thank you so much for your time and your attention today. But more importantly, thank you for continuing to contribute to a vibrant and beautiful Penticton.
Thank you, Katie. James Miller.
This weekend, my heart goes out to the First Nation community as the appalling tragedy of the residential school system once again rears its ugly, pathetic head and so close to home. Hello, for those of you who haven't met me, I am James Miller, and I love seniors. I'd like to begin by thanking Jake Kimberly for the exceptional service and commitment to our community for 17 years as an elected official and his great volunteer work as a private citizen. I arrived in Penticton in 2008 from Spruce Grove, Alberta. I quickly drew attention the next year when I, along with a young city councilor by the name of Dan Albus, took a lead in the community when we went to war with Canada Post, which abruptly pulled its service from our downtown. The issue? Kiosk renovations at Smart Shopper. Well, I did lose that one, but I promise you I win more than I lose, and I always try. In the 2014 municipal election, City Hall didn't see it fit to offer a traveling ballot box to shut-ins at the seniors' residence, as every other municipality in the Okanagan did do. It boxed out literally hundreds of voters who wanted to participate. In my role as a print journalist, I fought hard for democracy, and to the credit of Mayor Andrew Jacobite and the council today, they did implement a fair and effective system for the 2018 election. I stood in support of maintaining the natural state of Skaha Lake Park. I vocally opposed the $1 surcharges to customers who wanted their utility bills to be mailed. And I backed residents of Cherry Lane Towers over the roller shutter controversy. As a journalist, I covered the atrocity that occurred to a 91-year-old Alfredo Bonaldi in Summerland. A member of my campaign team had his father-in-law die of COVID, and I watched in sadness as COVID works its way through a health system in Oliver. If elected, I'm not going to stand behind Cherry Park and Charles Manor residents. I'm going to stand beside them in addressing their concerns with the Victory Church homeless shelter. I agree with City Council's hard-nosed approach on the issue, and recent actions by Housing Minister David Eby, a former lawyer, are appalling. To overrule an elected body, whether you agree with that issue or not, is a slap in the face to democracy and a slap in the face to our Canadian veterans who paid the ultimate price during the Second World War. The priority of the city's age-friendly action plan, well, there are many excellent points, but if I had to pick one, it would be transportation. I'm inspired daily by local seniors, people like Ruby Cumberland, Evelyn Blaine, Helen Little, and my second mother, the late Evelyn Pollock. We can also learn a lot from our First Nation communities, especially in their exceptional treatment of elders. I want all seniors in Penticton to be treated the way my own mother, who is home back east watching online. Hi, Mom. I love you. Vote James Miller.
Thank you, James. Karen Brownlee. Can you unmute, Karen?
Yes, I
Great.
guess I should unmute, right?
Thank you.
I am Karen Brownlee, a resident of Penticton, 30 years from Manitoba with my family. As a lawn care provider, seniors do a great percentage of my client base who still stay in their home. Because they are seniors who have home care and I'm on their property frequently, I am appalled to see the abuse part nutritionally, which then leads to psychologically, which leads to other health issues. Their food they are given, the time spent for what the home care is being given is, and I have gone to many families and I have expressed my concern of the home care girl who is going in to help, usually mom, and sometimes the father. And I express my concern deeply for them. And my own neighbor down the road from where I live, I went to visit her and her home care girl was giving her for dinner 4 Chinese rolls with sauce, plum sauce. And I was blown away by that. And because of that diet, Katie just went and she sat on the TV and she went nowhere and she watched TV in her own home. I told her, I have to cook for myself. I can bring you dinner, a hot dinner every night. And I did. And she got better. Her mental faculties increased, her mobility, walking to Safeway for her own groceries, kicked back in. And so my concern for the elders is the abuse, the psychological abuse, the physical abuse, the nutritional abuse. And I believe that there needs to be checks and balances to the care that our seniors are getting, whether it's in their home or in their facilities that they live, by their families, by the hand of their home care. This needs to be addressed. And I want to find out how we can monitor those who purportedly are helping our seniors. And I believe once the nutrition factor gets rectified, a lot of the other ones will fall into place. As an example I had given, their physical mobility, their mental faculties become sharper, and they want to go out, they want to walk, they want to enjoy their environment, they want to socialize once again. And so as a counselor, I will be doing my darndest. And the other thing, they're all very important, what you had said, but transportation, and I had said this my last campaign, I am going to make sure all seniors get free bus passes. The end.
Thank you, Karen. Isaac Gilbert.
Hello, thank you. And I want to thank the Seniors Wellness Society for hosting this event today. And, as with James Miller, I think it's very important to take that moment to reflect on the news this week from the residential schools and the 215 children that died within that system. And to also know that there are many First Nation elders and within our community that have probably experienced that going to that residential school in Kamloops and need the support and services to be able to deal with that trauma in our community. And that's why I'm running. You know, as someone who is a grandson who hasn't been able to see my grandmother over the past year and a bit now because of COVID, and hearing and talking to her and realizing that even my mom and dad and my aunt and uncle can't see her, I understand that, you know, seniors are very important. There are elders in our community, our knowledge keepers of our society, and we can learn a lot from them. And I've had that opportunity working on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, working with John Archer, Peter Osborne, and many others. And then also, going on a ride last week with Bridget Kemp down to number 16 and learning about the transportation and the struggles that seniors have. And to look at the action plan, I think it's a great plan that was put forward, and I would love to support it. And I think the most important part of that plan is the physical environment. And it is where the city of Penticton can really put the rubber to the ground and get going on this. And as my platform shows, that's what we want to work on. I want to put forward an affordability plan that rezones land to have affordable housing and to work with the Seniors Wellness Society and the senior community to get that housing in. Within our official community plan, we have a section in it that discusses mobile homes and to protect those mobile homes, because that one gives seniors independence and allows them to have affordable housing here in the city. And the other one as well is, for me, is the transportation, making sure that this city is accessible and safe for seniors to be able to get around town. I was fortunate to work with Cycling Without Age to be able to bike some of the people who are physically not able to bike around the city, and get to hear their stories, to give them an opportunity to be on a bike. And as I said, when I went out with Bridget, I understand that the bus system is important for some seniors who need to access to town. Also, to our physical environment, our sidewalks. In the city, I would love to put forward a plan that would make our sidewalks continuous, where seniors don't have to walk down and step up or bump up a curb, allowing for people who are in wheelchairs, allowing for people who are in crutches, or whoever have other physical limitations to be able to walk continuously from one end of the street to the other, and not have to worry about cars turning into the intersection, and showing that the priority is for the people to walk and be able to get around town. And finally, the last thing I want to bring up in my platform, I think it's very important that we get a physician recruitment strategy to ensure that the seniors have health services here in town as we see caseloads become bigger and as doctors are retiring.
Thanks, Isaac. James Blake.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Blake, and my family moved here in 2012 to open the Landmark Cinemas. And I was excited about today because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that I've met many times and know. We were so thrilled and so proud to do so many senior events there and get people out and get them engaged. I'm no spring chicken myself. I'm 56, and it makes me think, like, what would be important to me as a senior or at any age, and it would be to be connected and a part of society and a part of a community and be involved like I was ever. I recently had an experience. I had a friend that was in Westview, and he was in there for more than a year before he passed away. And I got to spend a lot of time in there, and it was extremely eye-opening to me. And the senior plan, so much of it seems to boil down to connectivity, one way or another, keeping seniors connected. And when I was in Westview all the time, I would notice that there were so many people that wouldn't have visitors. They wouldn't even have a TV. They would have no internet access. And that is disconnecting a valuable part of our city. We have such a diverse city, and our city is at an important time in its history, and we need those people connected. And if we could come up with a program that would ensure people in those facilities would technologically be connected, and then over and beyond that, if we had it so there was a high school program where high school students could go and read to seniors and teach them what TikTok was about and just have fun with it, or somebody on unemployment, there was a prerequisite that they would have to go spend time volunteering in a senior center. And get the SPCA to get pets in there so people feel engaged and alive and a valuable part of the community. I just want to assure everybody that everybody is valuable, no matter what age you're at. And if I was a city council member and you couldn't get to me, I would get to you, because you have valuable information that all of us in this city needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Steve Brown. There we are.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Steve Brown. I've been a resident of Penticton for 42 years, and I actually qualify as a senior citizen given that I'm 70 years old. I also would like to make mention of the tragedy in Kamloops, as my eldest daughter, Alexis, is a senior educator with the Schwetnick people in Kamloops, and she's been dealing this entire week with that tragedy and dealing with the kids that are suffering through that. I believe there are two main priorities that come out of the age-friendly action plan: housing and social participation. My remarks today are based upon my experiences in dealing with two extremes of seniors aging in place. The first, my mother, a widow, 90 years old, lives on her own in an apartment in West Vancouver. And along with her two best friends, she walks the Ambleside seawall 3 times a week, attends church, and goes for tea at the senior center. She still has her license, drives her car, and her only medication is half an aspirin a day. An ideal situation for her two sons, one living here in Penticton and the other in London, England. This situation has its challenges and its worries, and as she gets older, but we are all very incredibly lucky that this is her situation. The second, another family member, a widower, 94 years old, lives in assisted living in subsidized facility by a charitable organization. This was not always so. To get our family member in this safe and secure situation took our family 10 years of fighting the legal and court systems, $120,000 in legal and other costs to extract him from a nightmare scenario of abuse by a criminal element that was embedded in his home, the loss of his life savings, and finally the eviction of the criminal element from his home and comiteeship granted to the family. This was a failure by healthcare providers, the police, mental health laws, elder abuse advocates, public trustee, and family, resulting in isolation and loneliness. Our experiences and reading the action plan, the need for affordable, supported transitional housing is obvious because it makes sense. But also as an industry for Penticton, we should be considering turning Penticton into the retirement capital of BC, building housing facilities, and training our young people as support workers. I would be an advocate for you on City Council.
Thank you, Steve. Amelia Boltby.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to discuss my platform and answer your questions. My name is Amelia Boltby, and I'm hoping to be your next City Councillor. By way of introduction, I grew up in Penticton, as have 4 generations of my family. I moved away to pursue a career as a lawyer in Vancouver, and I moved back to Penticton in 2020 because it's the best place in the world to live, in my opinion, and I'm running for City Council because I want to keep it that way. Now I work for Veterans Affairs Canada, and in that role, I represent members of the RCMP and Canadian Armed Forces whose disability pension benefits have been denied. About 50% of my clients are seniors and seniors with disabilities. I actually specialize in hearing loss in particular, but in working with my clients, we have a lot of discussions around the financial challenges of living on a fixed income, the physical challenges of maintaining independence, and the social challenges of loneliness, particularly in our pandemic world. So I'm familiar with the challenges faced by seniors. I feel privileged to work in that role, and I feel my background with Veterans Affairs Canada makes me an excellent candidate to represent our seniors at City Hall going forward. I've spoken to many seniors in my campaign, and I've identified a few specific areas that I would tackle first as part of the age-friendly action plan. The first is accessibility. Many seniors with whom I've spoken have said that the curbs in Penticton are too high and do not allow for easy transitions with walkers and wheelchairs. The action plan identifies at page 12 making these improvements, and I agree with improving streetscapes, lowering curbs, alignments at crossings, improved sidewalks and trail connections. Many seniors have spoken to me about the lack of clean and safe public washrooms. They've told me that in the last few years, they've noticed washrooms are unclean or out of service, and this is tracked with the increase in crime. A big part of my campaign is advocating for more RCMP officers. I feel if we can reduce the current burden on our officers, we can ensure a cleaner and safer community for our seniors who have earned the right to live in peace and tranquility. My last point is regarding transportation. Getting from point A to B is challenging and important to seniors to maintain independence. So I'm in support of the recommendations in the action plan, including increased bus hours, free bus times for seniors, expansion of handy dart service. So 3 minutes is not a lot of time to address such an important issue. So I would really welcome anyone who wants to reach out to me to reach me at ameliaboltby@gmail.com or through my website at electamelia.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Jason Cox.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the organizers for putting on this event. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in to watch. I know this is an unconventional way to do a forum, but I'm happy that we're able to do something and to connect with you. For those who don't know me, my 2 decades in the community, I have been constantly and consistently involved in service to the community as a member of dozens of boards and city committees. My experience as an elected member of the Penticton Chamber Board and the BC Chamber Board has given me the opportunity to advocate for and represent Penticton to different levels of government and build valuable relationships around Penticton and around the province. My experience is also with many not-for-profit boards, including the Brain Injury Society, which operates the second largest inventory of affordable housing and supportive housing in the community, as well as homeless outreach. I've also volunteered with the United Way, the Canadian Mental Health Association, and a number of other boards in the community. Professionally, I'm a business banker, so I'm familiar with finance and economies and getting people and businesses growing and employing more people, which, you know, when we look at Penticton as a retirement community, we're going to continue to need a strong and diverse economy to provide those services that people who move here are looking for support in their years. Be the increased staff at the hospital, support services to people's homes, or even, you know, your local barista at the coffee shop. My partner and I, Millie, my partner and I are parents to 4 wonderful daughters, ages 21 to 16. And through them, I've had an opportunity to be involved in a variety of sports clubs and school activities in the area. The last 10 years, I was primary caregiver for an 86-year-old aunt who lived in the community, who passed unfortunately just before COVID started. And so I've walked beside her as and experienced the challenges of light changes that happen a little too quickly and curbs that are a little too high. And so when I look at the community action plan, I applaud the city for looking at this. You know, right now, a little over a quarter of our population is 65 and older. By 2032, it's projected to be over 30%. And we need to consider this population as this continues to be a place where people want to retire, work, and live. So when I look at the action plan, I see some areas for opportunity. I would like to, if elected, work with the city to improve on the action plan around the area of affordable housing. As seniors are engaging the community, we're finding that not only are property prices increasing, rent are increasing, your taxes are increasing, but also the utility rates are increasing, and all of this is putting an extra burden on residents who are on fixed income. I'd also like to see a change to the transportation system with more routes, cheaper fares, or zero fares for seniors. For more information, I'll look forward to answering questions as we go through.
Thanks very much, Jason, and thank you to all of you for your opening statements. A reminder to our viewers and audience that you can submit your questions on the Q&A function on Zoom. So if you have something you'd like to follow up with a candidate or all the candidates, please submit that question on the Q&A. Our next section is to pose specific questions to the candidates. We will draw 3 names out of our lovely little bowl here and pose those questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the question. A reminder that if someone would like to, one of the other candidates would like to get into that question, simply raise your hand physically on screen or use the raise hand function on Zoom. So the first 3 names: Karen Brownlee, Steve Brown, and Kate Hansen. The question is, and by the way, these questions were developed, pardon me, by the members of the host organizations. Penticton is a caring community, and most seniors understand that those with mental health and addiction issues need a place to live other than on the street. Seniors are also concerned about their personal safety when shelters are close to their homes or when seniors walk alone in some areas. How can the city balance the need for shelters and seniors / public safety? Kate, how about if we go first to you?
I think
Good.
the first name was Karen, I think, Wendy.
Pardon me?
Karen Brownlee?
Karen?
Was that me? Was that me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yes. It comes down to the mental well-being, not only of the person who suffers from mental issues, but also drug addiction issues, also the mentality part there. If we can start from the beginning, strip away everything, address the needs individually, like you would want to be addressed individually, rather than all seniors get this medication, all seniors get that because they're seniors. The same applies to people with mental health issues and drug addiction issues. Start there, we clean that aspect up, and they themselves will start contributing back to our community as a give back program. Thus, the seniors will feel more safe.
Thank you. Steve, I believe you're next. Steve, there we are.
Thank you. My feeling is that we require 2 things. We certainly require more support by us for our police services and for our bylaw officers. They need to work hand in hand to get a grip on what is happening in and around those shelters. Now that they also have an addictions nurse that has been assigned to the RCMP, I think this is going to go a long way to helping that out. But most of all, that shelter needs to be moved. Now, it needs to be closed down in the location where it is, the senior housing around it, so that those folks feel safe. But we need to be working with BC Housing, and we need to be working with the ministry to move them. And they need to take a look at some of the alternatives that the city has put forward to them. And
Thank you.
to this point, they've ignored.
Thank you, Steve. I see that we have Isaac with your hand up and James Blake. We will come to you after we have finished the others. Kate Hansen.
Thank you. First of all, supportive housing is required in our community. There are many vulnerable people that are at risk of homelessness or homelessness that need our assistance. However, all agencies need to be held accountable and responsible for their actions or inactions when it comes to supportive housing. Interior health needs to be held responsible when it comes to mental health and addictions. The BC provincial government needs to be responsible when it comes to their supportive housing issues. All agencies, RCMP as well, bylaws, all working together collectively, because we have this perception that Penticton is unsafe, led by our social disorder. We see people shooting up on the streets, we see graffiti and crime and tents, whatever. All working together is what we need to do to work collaboratively to find solutions.
Thank you, Kate. Amelia, I think you were the first with your hand up. I'll come to you.
Thank you so much. I think this question of balancing the needs of those who are experiencing homelessness with our seniors population is one of the issues that has thrust me into this election, because I see it as being the core issue. Municipalities are kind of limited because we're not the ones who provide mental health resources, and we all know that that's the problem, but there's a couple things we can do. Number one, the municipality should be teaming up with those who provide wraparound services to help them advocate with the province so that they can get better contracts, so they can provide more thorough services to those who are experiencing homelessness. And the second point is regarding additional RCMP officers. Right now, it's actually a small minority of individuals who are causing the most discord. If we had more officers, we'd be able to deal with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Isaac.
Yeah, no, I really agree. This is a very important thing. And as someone here who has toured the Victory Shelter and spoken with the PDSCL and with the CEO, I understand that is not a place where that shelter should be. It is the most reasonable location right now. What we've seen and what James Miller is preaching is that there's no solutions that the city of Penticton is bringing forward in this situation. The city of Penticton is also breaking their own official community plan by not working with senior levels of government and with the nonprofit housing sector to bring in a shelter. So with me, 100%, what really needs to happen here is we need to have a permanent shelter in town to be able to get the people who are dealing with addictions and mental health services the help that they need, and then to also build that transition homes to get those people the help that they need so that they can then become independent.
Thank you, Isaac. James Blake.
Hello, thank you very much. Speaking as somebody that was homeless as a teenager, I feel the need to stress the point that if somebody becomes homeless and they go days without proper food, days without good sleep, days without clean clothes or a shower, they will very quickly get involved in whatever will feed them. And that means selling drugs or getting into crime or something that will cost society long-term infinitely more than if we just get them off the street. That being said, no doubt it's very difficult because residences don't want it and businesses don't want it. Maybe we should build something up in the industrial area, slightly out of the way, but still in the city, so they could get jobs and become a part of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Keith, we'll go to you.
Tech guy should be able to know how to unmute. Yeah, there's a lot of politician answers in the room tonight. I get quite frustrated when the call for more RCMP officers keep happening. The RCMP is probably one of the most bureaucratic organizations there is. We spend 10 million of our $50+ million budget on RCMP for very, very poor service. When I was helping clean up the area around the Shatford Center, bylaw was 90% of the time much more effective. And I think what's happening is we end up funneling all of our tax money up to the province, and the province decides what they want to do with it. Most recent example, they're bullying with the pathways, with the shelter, and most recently they bought a bunch of property in our town without consulting with the city and saying that they were going to do with it. After the fact, they say, we're going to consult with you and decide how we're going to build it. It's our community.
Thank you, Keith.
We know what's best.
Wind it up, please.
Yep. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you. Jason, I believe you were next.
Thank you. So this is an issue that also has driven me to run, and I ran also in the 2018 election, coming second in the race for mayor. And this is an issue I was talking about then, and it is still prevalent. I think the key issue here is that our council and our city government has been purely reactive to situations, and not we haven't come up with a true Made in Penticton plan and taken that to the province and advocated for the services that we need, and work with the not-for-profits in the community to develop the services that we need. You know, there's an expression in when you're working with any community group, and it's the no discussion about us without us. And I think we're often not including every sector of the community, including the homeless, when we're talking about the homeless. I think proactively we can do things like zoning changes so that BC Housing doesn't come in and buy land and then tell us what they're doing with it after. That we work together and advocate strongly to make sure that we have a plan that works for our community, not that's hoisted upon us.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Kate, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad the other candidates share my views. However, I want to clarify a few things. You know, before we hire more police officers and increase our tax burden, we have more than 5 vacancies that we should be filling to better work within our policing abilities. Police are working very hard on prolific offenders in town, and you're right, several people are doing a lot of damage as far as social disorder. However, the police do not have charge approval in this province. Charges go to Crown for approval, and a lot of people don't understand that that is a problem within the cycle that we need to break. Bylaws are also not able to arrest people, but policing and bylaws working together, much more effective use of our resources. Thank you.
And my error, apologies, folks. Janet has just clarified for me that she will give you a 15-second warning and then the final bell. So apologies to the earlier folks. James Miller.
I'd just like to correct some erroneous statements that were made by other candidates. To quote Councillor Frank Rieger, the city they do not want to throw people out in the cold. They were asked for a 1-year temporary shelter. It was then asked, they want an extension for 2 years. Mr. Rieger has asked and said, we have 3 other locations. We have other plans. Ministry of Housing, would you please work with our staff, listen to our staff, come up with a collaborative agreement? There are better places than a former banquet hall. As for BC Housing, I'm sorry, this is an organization which kicked people out of their common area on Winnipeg Street, kicked the cadets out to put $450,000 worth of glass offices so that their employees could have a comfortable place to work at. BC Housing is not communicating well with the city. They're guests in our city, and they just approved 3 motels to change them over. The city gets 24 hours notice. I'm sorry, other candidates, I gravely disagree with you.
Amelia, I see your hand still up. There's only 2 opportunities to put up your hand. Did you want back in on this one? We've got some other hot topics.
Right. You know, I do actually, my hand is up a second time. I know that I'll be using up my hands, but these are the issues that are important to me. And I just want to address something that Kate Hansen said. She's absolutely correct in that charge approval is Crown prerogative. So that's not even a municipal issue. It's not even a police issue. But why I'm advocating for the 5 vacancies to be filled right away. Penticton is a wealthy municipality. We have lots of money. There's no excuse for something as important as police and first responders to be understaffed, is that it will then give them the opportunity to gather that evidence so that they can actually move forward with getting these low-level drug dealers off the street. So that's the basis of my crime and safety platform. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll conclude that topic. I will pick 3 names. James Miller, Katie O'Connell, and Jason Cox. The question is, senior city officials recently said the city won't demand developers provide affordable housing for fear it will push developers away, and developers are already building more rental properties than expected under the official community plan. Kelowna and Vernon are working with developers and other levels of government to create affordable housing. What is your view on requiring developers to provide affordable housing units as a condition of development? James.
I think it's a fairly good idea. I'm not really quite sure how this could be enforced by telling them that, but if a large development is to be approved, and certainly in an appropriate area, and Penticton does have limited amounts of development space, a lot of major cities and smaller cities similar to Penticton, will quite often put in a condition that a 4 or 5 story must have X number of units for affordable, whether it's for the working poor or for seniors. It's certainly an idea that I would entertain. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie O'Cal.
Thanks. I agree with James. I think enforcement on this is hard, but I don't understand why the city wouldn't do this. I think it's interesting that the city says they're afraid of pushing developers away, because every project that they have turned down has pushed developers further and further away. And I think saying that they would be amenable to building big buildings if they were allowed to put them in is far more attractive than saying buy this property and then we'll tell you no once you've already purchased it. My platform stands on something called a density tax, which is a lot easier to enforce than a required affordability. With the density tax, developers are required to have a certain density, not in terms of apartments, but in terms of townhouses or duplexes. That density helps to decrease the cost of housing overall and allows us to have more housing in Penticton, which we all know we are in crisis. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Jason Cox.
I am so glad that I got this question. I've been on the city's Development Services Committee for a number of years. I was chair of the Economic Development Committee. We've done things in this community before where we incentivize the kind of development we'd like to see. We had economic incentive zones for a number of years, which when I was chair of the Economic Development Committee, we recommended to the city, they carried out, and we saw great participation in that in some areas. Rather than enforcement, I want to look at this as incentive. There are a variety of things that the city can do to work with developers who want to build housing at market rate to provide, rather than a density tax, a density bonus, where they can build, another floor if they hold back a certain number of units at below market rent, or a tax incentive where you get to deal on taxes if they maintain a certain level of below market housing. There are a number of ways that the city can work with developers rather than closing the door and saying we don't want to.
Thank you, Jason. Isaac, I see your hand there.
Yes, and this is a really good question. It's a big part of our platform is to try to bring affordable housing into the city. And then the way that we look at it is, the way that I look at it is the city of Penticton has a lot of land that it owns. And I would push to have some of that land zoned as affordable housing and create a city public housing authority that would work with those developers and the home builders, senior levels of government, cooperative housing associations, and a nonprofit housing sector to bring that type of housing in. I'm also willing to, look at, waiving certain restrictions that developers have, such as parking restrictions on houses. When we look at densification, developers are required to supply so much parking, which means buildings have to be taller and taller and taller. But if developers are willing to put areas where it's more walkable, those buildings, I'm more than willing to work with those restrictions to be able to get them to develop.
Thank you, Isaac. Keith, I see your hand up. Just a reminder that there's only 2 hands, so take it away.
Yeah, I think this is another example of where we're trying to use the government to force developers to do the right thing. And I think we've all known, not to be presumptuous, but I think over your lives, you took a lot more personal responsibility, and just like Justin Trudeau creating $350 billion in new money, there's unintended consequences when the government tries to interfere. And the real reason there isn't affordable housing is because the government has too many regulations, builders that really know how to do their jobs better. Government gets in the way. There's a lot of fees, there's a lot of overhead. Projects that should take 3 months end up taking a year because of over-regulation, and that's why there's not the affordable housing that we need, and there are these problems, and the government tries to create all these programs. And in essence, if we sort of brought it back into personal responsibility, we as a community could do a whole lot better.
Thank you. All the hands. We have for our next question, Keith McIntyre, Isaac Gilbert, and James Blake. The Age-Friendly Report is a comprehensive plan that touches many areas of city responsibility. If elected, how would you go about advocating for seniors at the council table to implement recommendations in the plan? And which items would you advocate for most? Keith?
Yeah, I read the plan and I was very involved in the official community plan and when I was running the Smart Cities Challenge. And what came about the most 3 years ago was that business in the private sector and the nonprofits and co-ops can actually do a whole lot more, create a lot more action than municipal government can. And so, you know, we kind of defer our responsibility and we all think, well, the government's going to take care of that. They've done a study. They're going to do the actions. Realistically, what I want to do is to reduce our reliance on these government officials and to create more opportunity for community organizations. Pathways is a great example of that, and all kinds of organizations in our community with talented people that are doing much better job. And I'm not saying that the government isn't doing a job once in a while, but you know, I think we're just deferring our responsibility up, and we're not being personally responsible for our community, and that's where we can change.
Good stuff. I think everyone had a crack at a question. We'll put them back in the bin and pick out 3 more.
Oh, sorry. I think there is myself and then someone else had.
Yeah, I think it was
terribly
Isaac and
sorry.
James Blake.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Apologies, folks.
No problem. Yeah, so I'll start. So what I'd like to really address, what I really love about this plan is how thorough it is and how it goes over a lot of, I think, very important stuff, very important actions. And I think what's great about it is looking at how the actions that are there. There's a plan, and it shows where it also sits within the official community plan. And that's why I will definitely advocate for this plan to be in the city of Penticton and if elected, to direct staff to implement some of these actions. I think it's very important. And I think, like I said in my previous opening statement, it's the physical environment, I think, is the biggest action that we can take here is to get that, to ensure that seniors have accessibility throughout the town when it comes to public transportation, to allow for seniors to have affordable housing and also to be connected to their community. And once again, I would like to also state that it'd be a big advocate to make sure we have a physician recruitment strategy so seniors have doctors and the health services that they need in this town.
Thank you, Isaac. James.
Hello, thank you. I read the action plan too, and it's great. It's warm and fuzzy, but I think it was maybe Keith that mentioned earlier that it's honestly extremely vague. It's wonderful to have, but we have to sit down and come up with very specific, concrete actions. Everybody's talking about sidewalks. The sidewalk in front of my house is atrocious. Do we come up with a plan that says every street has at least 1 sidewalk, 2 sidewalks, and they're not crumbling? We need very specific actions and plans and rules and regulations to come from that. It's far too vague. It does honestly kind of seem like it was a very political thing to write, but we need some teeth to it.
Thanks, folks. Janet's just posted an update here. Amelia, Isaac, and Keith are out of rebuttals, so you've had your 2 hands up. Thank you. All right, now we will go to our second set of questions, and we have Kate Hansen, Katie O'Kell, and Karen Brownlee. We'll circle back to a topic that has been touched on several times. The age-friendly report indicates the city's transportation system does not serve seniors well. What would you do to address that?
The answer is for all the Ks.
Good
So
one, Kate.
as transportation, something I thought would be fairly simple is to set up a regular bus service for seniors, perhaps a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, from time to time. Every 2 hours, they had a specific drop off and pickup zone right in front of seniors' homes. So there's less confusion about bus times. There's less transportation issues to get to your stop and what time it is. If we could set up a schedule to make it easier for our seniors and simplify the mobility of getting to and from your bus stop and your destination, we would let people get out to where they need to go, enjoy our city. It has a very relatively low cost for our city and make things much simpler for our seniors to enjoy our city and get about. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Katie.
Thank you. I come from Toronto over a decade ago, and I remember coming here and being kind of shocked and horrified by how terrible the transit system is in Penticton. Not only is it terrible within Penticton, but there's no way to get from Penticton to Kelowna or Peachland in any form of reliable manner. A lot of our doctor specialists are in Kelowna. So how is a senior supposed to get there on their own unless they have to rely on one of their family members who is busy working and doesn't have time to help them? I think that transportation is extraordinarily important. I think we need some times that are seniors hours where they don't have to pay, and then they can actually go and do their groceries and do their chores, which will allow them to be more empowered to live in place. I also think we need more kneeling buses, and I think that we should work with other municipalities to get an intercity bus system, which will help everyone get to and from other areas for their medical appointments and other needs. Thank you.
Thanks. Karen Brownlee.
Well, the one thing I know for seniors, for transit, bus and transportation issues is cost. And I feel that if a person is 65 and over, they should get free passes throughout the city. And I do agree with Katie that we should be able to have some sort of transportation system from Penticton to Kelowna, as reason she mentioned. But for the other ones, I would like to have to find out first. I would need to know exactly the demographic, because senior assisted living homes have their own buses. We do have handy dart buses for people with disabilities. And the current transit system itself, I think is fairly good. And we do have family and friends and people who will drive you for free.
Thanks, Karen. No one's hands up on that. 3 more out of the bowl. James Miller, Keith McIntyre, and James Blake. We received this question through the registration form. There was an opportunity to submit a question, and we received this one last night. There is a story going around, perpetuated by the Mayor and press, that seniors are not safe in Penticton's downtown. As a senior who frequently goes downtown and always feels safe, what would you do as a city councillor to conduct a safety audit of the downtown area? What would you do to dispel what I see as a myth that seniors are not safe downtown? James?
I think reality and perception are 2 different things, and whether or not there's a high crime rate and seniors being the victims is correct or not, they still feel unsafe. That is the perception, and therefore to me that's very real. And I know from Charles Manor, a lot of seniors just love walking around the block, and that's all they're asking for is a safe walk. And younger seniors just want to be able to take their kids to the park and not have to worry about stepping on a needle. I'd like to see specifically what media outlet they are quoting that have created this fear, because I think all the outlets, and not just my own, I don't feel that they're fear mongering. So I disagree with that statement. In terms of an audit, the police report every quarter to City Council. And again, it all goes back to the Victory Shelter. Our seniors feel uncomfortable, whether it's that they should, they do. And that's the issue.
Thank you, James. Keith McIntyre.
Yeah, in my 10 years I've lived here, I've heard that a ton of times, and all I've seen over the 10 years is downtown Penticton continuing to improve. And the only way that it feels safer is that more people are out and doing things. And I'll disagree with James. I think the Herald in particular, over the 10 years I've been here, has I'm glad you're not writing right now, but it might not even be intentionally doing it, is increasing that perception of fear. And if there is a perception of fear, then people don't go downtown, and that creates more problems. It's the same thing with saying, don't send your kids to the playground because they might get kidnapped, and then less kids go to the playground, and then it makes it more dangerous. Downtown Penticton, sure, there is a colorful element down there, but they're not attacking seniors. They're not bothering. There might be some occasional instances for that, but I think if more of us are downtown and enjoying it, we've got each other's backs. We're a community. We don't need to spend money on a city study to determine that.
Thanks, Keith. James Blake.
I'm sure Kate could potentially delve into this more, but I believe that the RCMP track every violation and where it is on the city down to the block. So we would be able to find out realistically whether downtown is more dangerous than any other part of the town, which I generally don't think it is. To my knowledge, after working downtown for many years, I believe a lot of it's because it's more dense down there and the sight lines aren't very clear and people feel uncomfortable not being able to see around the block. So there is a perception that it may necessarily be more dangerous when that's not necessarily true. But I do certainly advocate having foot police down there, very visible all the time on bikes and walking the streets. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Kate, I see your hand up there.
Thank you. And yes, you are absolutely correct. Crime analysis is done every quarter and actually every month to show exactly where the hot spots are. And I can tell you that crime is actually going down in Penticton. Yes, there is a perception, maybe when you walk down Winnipeg Street and you see people sitting, shooting up drugs and kind of look nefarious, but actually our crimes against person are quite low. There are simple things we could do to make people, I think, feel a lot safer. Joint patrols between the RCMP and bylaws would be a great thing. I would love the city to hire city ambassadors to walk around, with seniors and maybe some youth together. Be a great way to have people working together and make people feel a little bit safer. But crime is actually going down in Penticton. It's just the perception that we need to change. Thank you.
All righty. Isaac Gilbert. Jason Cox. We'll make this a 4 because we have an uneven number. Amelia and Steve. And let's take this question from one of the audience members. What policy levers can the city use to create affordable housing, both for seniors on fixed incomes, but also the moderate income workers our city needs for health, hospitality, and tourism? Isaac.
That's a really great question. And we have that policy within our official community plan. It states what affordable housing is. So anyone who's spending more than 30% of their income monthly on housing, it's not affordable housing. Anything below it is affordable housing. And so my plan is to bring forward a rezoning of a lot of our city-owned land to work with partners with governments and nonprofits and cooperative housing to bring affordable housing here in town. And then also to creating a city public housing authority to ensure that coordination between those stakeholders and our community, we build that affordable housing here. Within our zoning, we are allowed to zone, and especially for seniors, protecting the mobile home parks here in town to ensure that if someone were to purchase that, how do we protect it through zoning bylaws to ensure that whatever's built there is housing for seniors and it is affordable and keeps their independence here in town.
Thanks, Isaac. Jason Cox.
Thank you very much for the question. And, you know, I touched on this earlier about the actual levers that exist around providing, you know, density bonuses and tax incentives to work with developers to build this. But, you know, I also will identify that there are specific lands in the downtown core, which would be prime for development, that the city in recent years has chosen to purchase off the market and in a couple of cases above market prices, which has kept developable land off the market and is currently being used for parking and things like that. So not its highest and best use. So some of the things I think when you're talking about levers is I think the city should look to either sell that land for market rent, which would provide more supply to meet the demand and push prices down, or work with BC Housing, not-for-profits, to build on those sites for specifically supportive housing, or partner with developers, like I said, around density bonusing and property tax incentives to hold back a number of units for supportive and affordable housing.
Super, thank you. Amelia.
Thank you so much. I'll be very plain. A municipality, legally speaking, has very few policy levers. However, that doesn't mean nothing can be done. I think there's a role for City Council to do more to cool housing prices for everyone. And the first is identified in the official community plan, and that's a need for housing density. In spite of this need, City Council has rejected several really good proposals that have come through lately. And one of the core tenets of my candidacy here is advocating for housing density to cool prices that will help everyone. So I see that as being City Council's main role in this area. Thank you.
Thanks, Amelia. Steve Brown.
Thank you. I agree with what a couple of the other candidates have mentioned, and that is the city does not have a lot of levers at its disposal. However, it does have land, it does have development costs, it does have the OCP and the ability to make changes to that with zoning bylaw changes, and it does have the ability to bring together and organizations, not-for-profits, developers, all of those people, BC Housing, to bring those people together to make a plan for what we can do. But the development costs and land are probably two of the things that the city can really take a hard look at and either waive those, donate them, sell them for cheap, whatever it is, but the city can play a big part on this with the development costs and land in particular.
Thank you, Steve. Katie, I see your hand up.
Thank you. I would really like to agree with Amelia that we have a need for density. Penticton is unique in that we have lakes on either side and mountains on the other two sides of us. There is not a lot of room to grow out unless we start to infringe on the beautiful landscape that makes Penticton unique and beautiful and what it is. And it's also not affordable for cities. The cost to deliver services per capita when you start to encourage sprawl is outrageous, and that ends up strangling a lot of cities. I would like to clarify something. Jason Cox mentioned that his density bonus was opposite to a density tax. They're actually conceptually the same thing, they just have different words, but they kind of mean the same thing. The density tax is a deferral or a punishment for developers that don't provide density, but also by its definition, if you build something that's dense, you're not eligible for that tax, which means that it is then a density bonus if you meet those requirements.
I think we're at time, Katie. Hope I got that right.
Good.
Thank you. Three more. Another question. Amelia, James Miller, and Katie O'Connell. The question is, the residents of Penticton are very protective of their parks and green space. Studies show that green space is important for our mental health. How can the city ensure it develops and retains important parks, green spaces, and agricultural land while still answering the need for more housing? Amelia, you want to take that one first?
will. Thank you so much. That's a great question. I'm someone who really advocates for housing density, but also I grew up here with a lot of land, a lot of room. I was very privileged. And I think that everyone should have access to parks, and we should not in any way infringe on the ALR, nor should we infringe on our parks. And in answer to that, one of the housing development proposals City Council recently rejected was, there was a common misconception that it was in the ALR. I'm referring to the Ventura Spiller Road project. None of that land is in the ALR. None of it is a park. It was identified in the OCP as being highest and best use for development. So I think that's a big piece of land that has been identified, and I would seek to develop it. Thank you.
Thanks, Amelia. James Miller.
I find that interesting because the young candidate, I believe her family owns the piece of property right beside Spiller Road. And if it was rezoned, their property would probably double in value. But with that said, with Spiller Road, there was never significant consultation with the First Nation, and that is required. You cannot proceed with a project of that magnitude, as well as the Campy project, without consulting and making the First Nation partners. And we just saw what happened in Kamloops, and we're talking about reconciliation right off the top of the bat, and developers ignore that. As for parks, yes, keep them. I would like to see the park expanded. Skaha Park, please protect the pond area, the creeks. It's a gem for locals, seniors, tourists. I will, if elected, I will never let them touch our parks.
Thanks, James. James Blake, see your hand up.
Hi, thank you. These forums are fantastic because we have so many ideas and so much talent. And in the city in general, we have such a diverse population with so many wonderful thoughts that we can pick from and go in the right direction. Ultimately, we have very, very little land. We don't want to get rid of the parks. We don't want to build into the mountains. We don't want to have so many 5-story buildings that we completely destroy the available land. And we don't necessarily want a whack load of 50-story buildings. Eventually, soon enough, we will basically max this tiny bit of land out. And where do we go from there? And I think as a talented group of people in this city, we should suggest to the province and even the federal government, ultimately other alternatives for people. If somebody is unemployed, do we give them money to move to another city or a province that may be more reasonable for them to live? That doesn't exist now. People get trapped here and they can't afford it. Thank you.
Katie, I drove right by you. I'm backing up the bus. Your turn.
Quite all right, thank you. Firstly, I would like to stand up for my fellow candidate. I thought that we had all agreed to refrain from personal attacks. And I think the comment made about Amelia and her financial gain was slightly inappropriate and something that should be done in private. To answer the question, I think that Penticton has a beautiful amount of parkland and green space. I cherish it. I know it's very well used. And I love that we have a diversity of spaces, those that are accessible, those are for dogs, those that are for children, those that are for sports. And I think that we have to hold on to them and care for them. I work in farming. I have worked in a vineyard for the last 10 years. I've also learned to work in cherry orchards, and I understand the need to protect the ALR because it is vitally important. I think that we need to keep our current parks, but we also need to keep our current parks clean. There's constantly needles and debris in our parks. And if we aren't monitoring our parks, that's when the washrooms start to get defaced and need to be cleaned up. I think that the city needs to focus on maintaining our current parks and keeping them clean and organized so that we can continue to use them.
Thank you, folks. Just a reminder, everyone, this has been a great conversation and we'll continue for the few minutes we have left, but please let's be respectful of one another. Karen Brownlee, you have—
Yes. For the parks, as president of Protect Penticton Park Society for a number of years, Save Skaha Park and our society transition to us have fought vigorously with City Hall and Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, who keep trying to commercialize Skaha Lake Park. to sell with the Parks and Rec Advisory across the board, saying, yes, we can sell alcohol in Skaha Park and have our children see all of this. It's a family-oriented park. We have successfully fought City Hall in keeping it green and keeping it intact. And as president of that society, you bet it's going to stay that way.
Alrighty. I've picked 3 names here: Keith McIntyre, Isaac Gilbert, and Steve Brown. Your question is, what type of leader are you, and will you be on council? Keith McIntyre.
Yeah, type of leader I am with my children, my business. I've ran a business for 18 years. Is an empowering leader. I listen. I don't dictate. I think a lot of times people that end up in government are authoritarian, and they have ideas and they try to tell people what to do. I don't do that. I don't have the answers. I think the role of a government official is to listen and to learn, and to not be swayed by public opinion, and to stand up for your values. My values are hard work, integrity, and accountability. And I think that's something that's extraordinarily been lost in our political system. I go back to my dad used to say a long time in my hometown of about 5,000 people, where there used to run the town with 5 government employees, and now there's about 50. And he's like, why? And it's because government takes on too much for themselves. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith. Isaac.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I view leadership as someone who, leads by example, who sticks to their values and principles. And I remember throughout the, I try to remind myself throughout this campaign and, as I run here, that, the platform that I'm bringing in, affordable housing, making seniors a priority, and making this city a year-round economy. That was developed through a community process, through the team that I have, and listening to the community and the people who believe in that plan. And we've taken that, and I've been very pragmatic with it, backing it up by the official community plan, the policies that we have in the city, the bylaws that back it up. And that's the type of leader that, leadership that I try to exhibit every time that I live my life. And, and that's where I would be like on council, is to take a pragmatic approach at it, listen to the community, and have it backed up by the official community plan.
Thanks, Isaac. Steve Brown.
Yes, thank you. I would say that as a leader, I have a tendency to be a consensus builder when I need to be. I do like to, when there is a direction to go, if I have my own idea about it, I will bring that forward. However, I think it's really important to empower the people around you. Most people will make really good decisions if you allow them to make that decision, and have the opportunity to to direct people that they have influence over. So I like to really bring people together, make them work as a group, and that we get really good consensus on what we're doing.
Thanks, Steve. Katie, I saw your hand up first.
I believe that Jason's hand was up before mine. Would you like to answer first?
Thank you for pointing that out, Katie.
Okay.
I just saw yours first. Sorry.
Fair enough. So the question is, what kind of leader would I be? I think that I have a lot to learn in politics. It's no secret that I'm young, and I'm willing to admit that and accept that, and learn from all of the things that all the other people on council have to offer. One of the things that I have to offer is my 2 university degrees, which have taught me to research. I spend a lot of time reading in preparing for this election. I have spent a ton of time reading case studies and best practices from cities around the world. And that is what I would like to offer to council. I would not like to lead, because I think that I'm too young and too inexperienced to lead, but I would like to learn, and I have a lot to offer in my role of respectfully learning.
Thanks, Katie. Jason.
Thank you. So, first of all, I see public service as exactly that, being a servant to the community. And I think it's important to recognize that we have a very short time until the next general election. And whoever gets elected in this role is going to have to step in and know how to lead and know how to be part of this team from day one. I think elected experience is important, and I would submit that my 16 years elected by the business community to the Chamber of Commerce and 3 times as its president, I know what it's like to listen to the constituency, to represent people's views, to take a stand on public policy issues, to work with other levels of government. And all of those things are the things we're going to need the next councillor who is elected on June 19th to do from day one. And that's what I think I bring to the table.
Karen Brownlee, you have your hand up.
Yes, I will be an amazing support member for our city, working with the residents as I do with my lawn care clients in all capacities. I am a super great listener, and I have very, very, very strong business acumen with still running a successful lawn care business after 25 years. I will be bringing these strengths and these talents to City Hall to speak on your behalf so we can address the situation fully and openly together, giving you the respect you deserve as a resident of Penticton.
Thanks, Karen. I see we're running out of time here, and we did want to give each of you an opportunity to offer for about 45 seconds in closing comments. We'll do it in reverse order that we did the opening presentation. So Jason Cox, to you for 45 seconds, please.
Thank you so much. And you know what, building on what I was just saying about the short time we have before the next election, it's often said that when a new councillor is elected, it takes about a year to learn the ropes. Well, that's what we have left in this current council's term. I don't need time to learn the ropes as some others may. I've been on nearly every city committee and chaired many of them. I've been involved with many key community organizations. I'm very familiar with what the issues are with the city, and I come with solutions from day one. So I ask for your support on June 19th. If you'd like to know more information about me, you can check out my website, ourpenticton.ca, or my Facebook group, Our Penticton. Contact me by email, jason@ourpenticton.ca, or just call me directly. My cell number is 250-328-2028. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Amelia.
Thank you so much. I had planned wrapping up comments talking about my qualifications, but I feel it cannot go unanswered that my integrity and that of my family has been called into question by one of the other candidates regarding our potential property value should the neighboring site be developed. So I want to address that just by saying, if we have a development go in below my family's property, we will lose access to acres and acres of land that we previously had access to, as well as lose our view. There's no financial incentive here in this for me. I'm completely transparent in that and willing to provide any kind of backup on that point. And I would hope someone who's running on a platform of, I have all this experience, I'm the voice of experience, would not delve into the mud here with other candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Amelia. Steve Brown.
Thank you very much. I would just like to say, because we're here to actually talk about the action plan going forward, there's a couple of observations that I'd just like to make. First of all, the plan is very extensive, but I think one of the things that needs to happen is that we really need to define our needs versus our wants in order to move some of these things forward. We need to be inclusive of other age groups, because quite often what is good for one age group is good for many age groups. And I think that the alignment and the consolidation of the various organizations that have been involved in putting this together, and I think that they need to align their mandate and make sure that they're all headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Steve. James Blake.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to use my brief seconds to make a couple points, and that every time I have gone to the city, they are fantastic and they are 1000% supportive of anybody that comes into office there, whether new or not. They will support them through it. There seems to be a trend during these Zooms for certain people to put down the youth that has come forward to run for these offices. And I honestly think as a community, we should be proud of the youth that has stepped forward and been brave enough to put themselves out there. This mayor and council and the mayor and council before have been entrenched politicians, and they are leading us down a negative path. We need youth. We need new ideas. We need to be brought into the 21st century. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Isaac, please. Isaac Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for having me today. I really appreciate, being able to, as someone who cares for my grandmother and is a grandson and understands that, seniors are an important part of our society and have, the stories that they tell and the knowledge that they keep, voting for me is bringing a policy that, makes seniors priority by, ensuring that you have the public transportation you need, a physician recruitment strategy, that you have the health services and the doctors that you need here in town. And, I'm working forward to, to ensure that we have affordable housing and also to a year-round economy so that we can sustain ourselves over the years here in Penticton. So I look forward to hopefully when restrictions are over to meeting a lot of you in public and to maybe possibly, taking a couple of pickleball games.
Thanks, Isaac. Karen Brownlee.
Oh, if elected, I will be very honored, first and foremost, as only being in 1 year and a bit, to work with highly experienced people in council who can help me gain understanding of the directions we need to go from their past experience. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I do think that having young people involved is critical, but more at this point in time on as advisory committee so they can get their feet wet. Running a city is a huge responsibility fiscally and with the people in mind, having good connections with the residents and listening to their needs because they are saying something. Vast experience needs to be needed running a city.
Thank you, Karen. James Miller.
Yes, I've been called out and I would like to formally apologize to candidate Amelia Boltby, my fellow candidates, the moderator and the audience. I think that was unfair. I thank Amelia for her clarification on that issue. I have followed your Facebook posts and in these forums, and I certainly appreciate your passion. And again, I will do better. So I am sorry. And also to the seniors, as I said, if you want to speak to me personally, Miller for Penticton on Facebook, 250-487-8882, or the easiest thing to remember is pop into the Dragon's Den on Front Street, and they'll be glad to set up an appointment with me. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Katie O'Connell.
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to sincerely thank James Blake for his very thoughtful and encouraging remarks. Being a young person running for council is intimidating, but I am also very excited to share my ideas. And so I appreciate his kind words and his thoughtful comments. I would like to commend the action plan. I thought that it was thoughtful and all-encompassing. I think that we owe it to our seniors to make sure that we are creating a community that they can live in sustainably for the future. I would like to reiterate that my platform stands on affordable housing, policing, and recruiting doctors into our community. I think that we can all stand to benefit from these actions. And I appreciate everyone's time for coming and watching us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Keith McIntyre.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. I don't really like being in a room full of a lot of politicians, and people think I am one because I run for office, but I'm kind of the opposite of that. I think we got to get back to accountability. And if you think, when has the government actually done the right thing for you? And I go back, just think about when you were younger and communities actually worked together and they didn't defer and expect the government to be their parent. I have a great example from 3 years ago, or about 3.5 years ago. Huge snowstorm in Penticton, and the entire city was complaining because the bus shelters weren't getting cleared out. Well, it was Christmas holidays, and the snow plows are covering over the curbs, and you couldn't walk. Well, I put it out to my friends, and they just didn't realize that we could just go do that. And my friends went out there with some shovels and they cleared it out. And we
Thank you, Keith.
spent a lot of money on.
Thank you, Keith. Kate Hansen.
I want to personally extend my thanks to all of you for taking the time to listen to what myself and the other candidates had to say and to offer. My motto continues to be seek first to understand and then to be understood. In running for city council, I have no hidden agenda or motives. I am honest, I am empathetic, and I will work with the council to drive the actions and solutions. I truly want to do what's best for Penticton. As I said earlier, the voices and the votes of seniors will most likely decide this by-election. Please make sure that your voices are heard. I would be honored to have your support and to be on council to listen to you and to bring your voices to the city council table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you very much to all the candidates for being with us this afternoon. Thank you to our audience members. A wonderful turnout. I'd just like to remind everyone about the voting dates. Early voting will take place at the Trade and Convention Center from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, Saturday, June 12th, and Wednesday, June 16th. General voting day is Saturday, June 19th, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the Trade and Convention Center on Power Street, as well as the Seniors Drop-In Center on South Main. That wraps our forum. Thank you very much, candidates. And again, thank you to the audience.